right, so thank you for the invitation. We're quite happy to present today what the future of imaging will look like. And I always like to use an example that we are very familiar with, which is essentially the smartphone. And essentially, smartphone, yeah, we use that for the camera. And then if you see how smartphone makers, how they improved the quality over the camera over the years, it's something that is actually very visible. If you compare a phone 10 years ago with a phone now, essentially the camera became a lot bigger. Now, the camera became bigger because that is the way to collect more light. And if you collect more light, you can make a better picture. So it's quite fundamental. Now, the problem today is, and I'm sure the audience is very familiar with that, is that the image sensor inside of this camera, to make it see color, it's using a color filter array on top of the CMOS chip itself. So essentially, you have a red, green, blue, the Bayer pattern. And what it means is if the light falls in on the green pixel, then it means that only the green part of the spectrum is going through to the chip, and the red and the blue part is blocked. And essentially, you are losing 2/3 of the spectrum each time. So 70% of the light is effectively lost before it gets into the chip. And that is something that we are solving. So we have a technology that is replacing the color filters with the micro lenses, and we replace it by nanophotonics color splitter, which fits on top of all of the pixels and essentially takes in the light, then splits it in the different color components, and then guides each color into the different pixels again. So now we have a full color image, but without any loss. And so the result is that we have 3 times more light collected on the same area. And if you collect 3 times more light, I use the smartphone as the example, and you can imagine you could make the same camera size of 10 years ago, but then with the performance of today. But essentially, it can impact all camera applications. If you have more light, you can go for the same performance in a smaller size, which also makes it cheaper. But you can also decide to exploit those, for example, low light benefits to get higher quality. But you can also go for faster imaging, faster frame rates, higher speed, less motion blur, so many options. So across the board, there are benefits. And so if we zoom in one level deeper into what an Eyeo sensor with this technology brings, there are essentially 3 benefits. The first one is the higher sensitivity, which we already introduced. So the fact that we are not filtering anything, and if you look at the full Bayer area with the 2 times green, 1 times blue, 1 time red, overall you're losing 70%, and with our structure, we are still having a transmission of well above 90%. So that is where this times 3 more photon collection is coming from. So that's the first element. But the second element is equally important, and especially because now we can shrink the pixels to smaller size because we essentially utilize 3 times better the area that is available. But if we are shrinking pixels, then you come into the domain of tiny pixels, what you see today in consumer and smartphone space. And essentially what you see is that whenever you see an image sensor with a pixel size going below 1 micron, and in this example, I'm using the smallest 500 nanometer pixel as an example, what happens is that the size of the photon essentially is bigger than the size of the pixel. And so if you now want to collect the red photon will also be absorbed by the green and the blue neighbor pixel. So the absorption is even much more than the 70% of the previous slide when you make the pixels smaller and smaller, and especially below 1 micrometer. So in practice, nobody really uses these pixels as an individual pixel, and that's where you will then see quad Bayer and nonacell and tetrapixels appear, which basically mean that you start binning more of the same pixel under a same color filter and even under the same micro lens for the purpose of improving the SNR, essentially fitting the photon again into a bigger pixel. But the effective pixel size is now not 500 nanometer anymore, but it's actually a combined pixel. Now, the technology that we are using here, so again, that nanophotonics structure, the waveguide that collects the photon and then splits it in light, it also has a second property, which is to shrink scale down essentially the wavefront, so the photon size. And what it does is it shrinks the photon to below a 500 nanometer of size. And so now the photon also fits inside of the smallest pixel. And the result is that that structure on the right-hand side, which has much more sensitivity, is now outperforming the complete structure on the left-hand side. And that is a huge reduction in size, but also means actually an improvement in resolution. And then there is a last element, because we're not throwing away any of the light, we're not blocking parts of the spectrum. Our color reconstruction inherently also has a lower color error. And the first demonstration that I want to use here is one where we use a challenging scene, so an illumination of 2000 Kelvin, where we compare our sensor with commercially available very high-end sensor. And what you see first is that, okay, if you look at the color errors per different patch, the color error is somewhat lower. But more importantly is that we reach this result with an exposure time that is now 3 times shorter than the exposure time of that commercial sensor. So it also means that we have a shorter time frame in a lower light condition. And what is not visible here is actually our pixel size is also only half the size of that of the commercial sensor. So everything combined, we have much more light sensitivity. We can go to smaller pixels, and at the same time, we improve the color error. Now, where are we? Because this is a technology that we spun out from IMEC, and we're now introducing into the market. We have first results on prototypes, and there has also been a paper published about this. So here you see some of the cross sections that were made of the structure at that time. And we also have a demonstrator, whichever, if you have the opportunity to visit us, we can also show you. But it's essentially showing a setup where we combined these color splitters on a let's say in a certain resolution. Now we have white light. So here on the slide, you have to imagine there is white light coming from the back of the slide. It's going through the color splitter structures, and on the front side, you see that they are split into different color components. But then last but not least, so those were the initial demonstrations on the prototype. We are now releasing first evaluation kits. So they will become available by the summertime, and we're already in contact with a number of first customers. So if you're interested to start exploring the possibilities and also let's say the capabilities side by side for this evaluation kit of a standard RGB color filter and then our color splitter, please reach out. You can scan the code, or you can go to the website or reach out after the session, and we're happy to discuss for your application what it means and how to get your access to the evaluation kit. So this is coming very soon. And then, of course, what's next? So how does the future of imaging look like? Well, so as I mentioned before, so the technology is coming out of IMEC. So let's say the technology development already started quite a few years ago with first patents, first prototypes, and then that paper that was published at IADM. And after that, we incorporated the company. We raised 15 million of seed investment last year. And quite shortly after, we already had some customer engagements to, let's say, further establish the first product. And later this year, we will, following our evaluation kit, we will also introduce a first image sensor product that has this technology incorporated. And it will be mostly focused on high quality, low light performance. So you can see the number of applications in industrial vision, but also in surveillance, security, smart city scopes. We continue building the team. So currently we are about 17 people in the team with quite a lot of expertise. to let's say establish our products, of course. And also today, I want to make a call out. We are growing the team significantly. Also in the coming period, we will be starting a next generation image sensor development as well. And so we have a number of impactful opportunities also in the team. So if you are also interested in one of these, again, feel free to follow us, scan the code, reach out, and we're more than happy to talk. All right, thank you.